is our regular board meeting for the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. We're coming back in from our closed session. We're starting the meeting at 19:07 hours. Be advised, these meetings are televised on the Great Tri-Valley TV. I believe you can see them on Channel 28 on Wednesday and Saturday evenings, Monday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. I believe we have some folks who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening from Arroyo Seco. So you can come on up and ask folks to remove your hats and stand for the kids. Nice job, kids. I mentioned that we're coming in from closed session. This is an open session for folks who may not have been to a meeting before. And anything we do in the closed session, it's a confidential session. We report out. So I will ask our clerk, Mrs. Prusso, any actions to report out?
We have no actions to report.
Thank you very much. This is our normal meeting for the Board of Education for the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, and our primary focus here is on the education of the students within our jurisdiction. Each of you will have the opportunity to share ideas and share with your voices and anything you might have written down regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During our discussion of each agenda item, there'll be a time for you to come up and speak on an item. If you have an item that is on the agenda, we ask you to fill out a blue speaker card. They're out in the lobby. And if it's not on the agenda, fill out a tan speaker card. And in either instance, when you come up, we'll tell you this is the time to come up. We'll call you up by name in no particular order, and a little clock comes on. Each person has 3 minutes. What we really want to do is when someone comes up to speak in either scenario, we want to be able to hear you. So we ask that we're really polite here, so we appreciate that. But that we don't need a whole bunch of applause or anything on the opposite side of that. If you're in agreement with someone that's speaking, just simply, we can all see you and the cameras can too, so you can just simply raise your hand and it's representative, and then all the viewers who are watching or watch this on tape can see the same thing. And the idea is that we want to make sure that we hear you and we make sure that the microphone is on. And when you get down to about 30 seconds, you'll see the timer come on, and we ask you to be respectful for the time. And the reminder is that these meetings are televised. They are, Wednesday and Saturday evenings at 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 10, Friday and Saturday mornings at 9. So following the agenda, we're up in the section 4, and I'd ask our superintendent, Mr. Van Schack, if there's any changes to the agenda this evening.
President Bueno, there is one change to the agenda. A formal board correspondence was received after the agenda was published, but before the 4 p.m. deadline, the day before the meeting. A copy of the board correspondence has been given to each board member and will be included in the board clerk's summary.
All righty. So those who may have watched one of our meetings noticed that there's a change in the folks that are up here. So there was an election on November the 8th. Mr. Druin, he is our newest member, so we're going to swear him in.
We're very excited to welcome Mr. Stephen Druin to the board. Doing the honors this evening will be Mrs. Susan Kinder, our most senior assistant superintendent.
There you go.
Most senior.
And repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Stephen Druin,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Nice. No, he wants to get going.
All right, no backing out now.
All righty, we're moving into a section we look forward to every week, well, or every time we have our meetings, and it's our recognition. So, Mr. Van Schack, if you could go and roll those.
Thank you so much. Two incredible groups of students to recognize this evening. We will begin with Arroyo Seco Elementary School students, and their principal, Ms. Valerie Nebo, is here, I believe, to do the recognition.
Newbie mistake, sorry everybody. I would like to invite my Arroyo Seco conflict managers to come stand back here for part of the recognition, along with one of their teachers, Mr. Williams.
A big group.
Yeah, everybody wants to see you guys, not me. Good evening, President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, Trustees Prusso, Guzman, Wong, and Druin, members of Cabinet, and ASB Attorneys General. I'm Valerie Nebo, Principal of Arroyo Seco Elementary School, and I've invited our conflict managers to be part of our recognition this evening. Fourth and fifth grade teachers, Mr. Williams, joining us tonight, Mrs. Gellerman and Mrs. Mopus, trained some of our student leaders to serve as conflict managers at lunchtime during the week. The students, equipped with clipboards and checklists, wear vests so they are visible to others during lunch. When a conflict arises among their peers, students can seek them out to try to resolve their problem before getting a yard duty or other adult involved. They're also trained in the point at which to get adult supervision and support. This promotes student leadership, self-advocacy, and problem-solving for all. Our trained leaders gain valuable skills managing conflict that they can carry forward into the secondary grades and beyond. I proudly present to you the Arroyo Seco conflict managers, along with Mr. Williams, representing the teachers who prepare our students for this important role.
Nice job, kids. We'd ask that you guys come around. We want to shake all your hands. You guys come right on around. Like running the bases all the way around. Yeah, third to first. We're going backwards. Like NASCAR. Nice job. Good work, buddy. Go. Go. Here we go. Good job. Good job. That's good work you guys are doing. It's good work. Good work. Good job. Good job, honey. Good job. That's good work. I like that. I like it. Yeah, we'll go here. Good job. Good job. Good job. Wow. Best coach. Nice job. Good job, hon. Good job. Good job, hon. Nice job. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great job. Yeah, it's a great job.
Yeah, after I get the other ones.
I'd ask the folks, I know there's a speaker in the lobby, so as the kids are kind of making their way out, if you can kind of give them some room. We've got about 40 people that are kind of making their way through the lobby. Kind of give them a path there. And we'll give them a minute to kind of clear out, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our second one. It's going to take a minute here. It's like something you'd put on a resume. Conflict resolution. As a little kid.
Yeah.
That ought to be an advanced degree.
It is hard to see them and not get excited about the future of our
Oh,
country.
yeah. Yeah. Again, the folks out in the lobby, if we just give them there's folks still kind of making their way out of the boardroom. We'll kind of give them a little path so folks can work their way out. A lot of strollers and stuff. Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. I'll take it. Yeah, have them come up.
All right. Little selfie. That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and we've got another recognition.
All right.
And so if we can go ahead and get back settled in and have Mr. Van Schack, if you could introduce our next.
All right, we have an amazing group of students from Del Val, and they are led by their principal, Mr. Eric Taylor. And I see Steve Martin back here as well, I think. So Mr. Taylor, Mr. Martin, if you guys want to come forward and recognize these amazing students.
All right, good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, our community. I'm Eric Bear Taylor. I'm the proud principal of Del Val Continuation High School. And tonight I'd like to recognize 5 wonderful, amazing, talented members of our Del Val Wolfpack. I'd like to present to you Mia Torres, Gianna Camaro, Nathaniel Anchondo, Daniel Friday, and Catherine Martinez. All these students have earned 30 credits or more and have attended over 90% of their classes during the first trimester. Not only have they committed to succeeding in their education, but I witnessed the following things on a daily basis. They have a smile. They have a wonderful attitude. They build and maintain positive relationships with peers and staff. They're not afraid to try difficult things or ask questions. They're committed to completing their high school diploma. Some of our students tonight have faced some pretty significant life challenges, but we're all proud to support our students as they face these challenges head on. We're inspired by the hard work that they do and the hard work that they put in every day to be successful and create a better future for themselves. I would like to congratulate all of you on your hard work, dedication, and perseverance. So you can go in the back.
Nice work. Nice job. Nice job. Nice job. My favorite campus. And as folks are filing out, for the folks that are standing, feel free. There's a lot of chairs that are opened up in the front, so we can unblock some of our exits. And if there's some folks in the lobby that'd like to make their way in, we've got a few chairs up in the front, maybe about 15 chairs. No one wants to sit in the front row. Come on, teachers. Okay, Mr. Van
All
Schack.
right. Before we move on with the business of the evening, I would like to take just a moment to acknowledge the work that our president and clerk have done in 2022. I know that neither one of you particularly enjoys the spotlight. You tend to do the hard work because you know it needs to be done. But 2022 was a challenging year to lead, and President Bueno and Clerk Prusso, on behalf of my staff, I just want to say thank you for all the time and energy and dedication and emotion that you put into this position for the past year. This district is better off for having you here, and as excited as I am about the future, I also want to recognize the incredible accomplishments that you've helped lead us toward in the past. So thank you for your work in 2022, and I appreciate it on behalf of all of us.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to say something. I want to echo a little bit what Mr. Van Schack said, but in particular about our president, President Bueno. He's done a fantastic job as our president. He's a great leader, and he has handled some of our more chaotic meetings well. And I would like to nominate him to continue on as our board president, if you will accept that, and if my other board members are also willing.
I would like to second that.
Thank you. Yeah,
So can we
I-
call a,
I-
you'll do
I
it?
would. I'll do it, yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Wow, you seem so
Thanks.
excited.
Yeah.
I guess we need a
No.
vote.
Yeah, you guys have to vote, yeah.
We
you have
gotta
to
vote.
So I would
Also-
ask you to call the vote, please.
Okay, trustee Guzman,
Aye.
trustee Wong,
Aye.
trustee Druin,
Aye.
myself, aye. President Bueno, do
You
you
always
vote?
vote for yourself, yes. You don't want to lose by one. So that motion carries. Thank you very much. And in that spirit, I know that what Mr. Van Schack said about staying out of the spotlight, I know that's something that Trustee Prusso tries to do. But inevitably, she's thrust into the spotlight quite a bit, and these last couple of years have been very challenging. She's done a remarkable job summarizing the hundreds and hundreds of pieces of correspondence that we've gotten and casting those out. And if it's at the will of my other trustees, I would like to nominate her to do it another year, if you would.
And I second that as well.
Trustee Druin,
Aye.
trustee Guzman,
Aye.
trustee Wong,
Aye.
myself, aye. President Bueno.
Enthusiastically, aye.
Thank you.
I just love the fact that you guys need to change seats and name tags and all that kind of stuff. We're good to go. Fantastic.
Rinse, repeat. Okay. We're going to go right on through. You good? Okay. So we'd like to have our student board members. And I think, Mackenzie, you're going to go first today for Livermore? All righty.
All right. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet and Community. After a wonderful Thanksgiving break, LHS students are back for trimester 2. Many are looking forward to the fun holiday spirit week and dress-up days we have coming up as winter break approaches. This year, LHS leadership is bringing back an old tradition called Deck the Halls. Each grade level has chosen a hallway on campus to decorate with posters, wrapping paper, and themed items to spread holidays cheer. These decorations will be put up this Friday and stay up the whole week leading up to winter break. We will have other fun activities and treats lined up for our students as well. The holidays are not the only thing LHS has to celebrate for December. We are hosting our annual fall concert, or we just hosted our annual fall concert on November 18th in the LHS Theater. This concert featured students in the concert choir, chamber choir, and show choir. These students put on a wonderful performance. Winter sports are starting strong this year in their respective seasons, with both our girls and boys JV and varsity soccer teams securing wins this last week. Cross-country freshman Lainey Hempel finished in the top 15 in e-ball and qualified for NCS. Another thing to celebrate should be our amazing Wellness Center counselor, Mr. Zachary Radicke. The Wellness Center is a place on campus dedicated to being a safe space for students to seek guidance and de-stress. He was recently invited to a presentation at the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support Leadership Forum in Chicago, and Mr. Radicke gave a wonderful presentation highlighting how hardworking the staff at LHS is for our students and their individual well-beings. Livermore High School wishes all of you a happy holidays and encourages you to remember that today is a great day to be a cowboy. Thank you.
And now Loudon Philbrick from Granada High School.
Good evening. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet. Trimester 2 has begun, and students are starting to settle into their new classes. To get students excited for the new trimester, a rally will be held this Thursday. It's our annual Black Light Rally, and it's one people don't want to miss. Our staff kids Christmas holiday event will happen this Wednesday, and it's an event in which the staff's children are invited to a holiday party that's put on by leadership. This last Saturday, the annual Shop with a Cop took place at Walmart. For anyone that doesn't know, Shop with a Cop is an event in which children in need are granted money to buy gifts for their families and themselves. Granada and Livermore High's leadership classes helped in assisting the children in making purchases for their families. It is truly a heartwarming experience and brings a smile to everyone's face that participated. Next week will be our Holiday Spirit Week to get students in the holiday spirit. Monday is Holiday Hat Day, Tuesday is Ski Day, Wednesday is Ugly Sweater Day, and Thursday is PJ Day. Winter sports have now officially begun, and now the news that everyone has been waiting for. Our boys cross-country team traveled to Portland for the national meet and competed against the top schools in the nation. There's more. Our boys ranked 16th in the meet, making them 16th in the entire nation. This is the highest ranked Granada's cross-country team has ever been. Congratulations to the athletes as well as the coaches. Try to start off excellent for everyone here at Granada, and we wish that everyone enjoys the holidays. But remember, stay classy, Granada. Thank you.
Nice job. Okay, next part of our regular meeting, moving forward, is our employee associations. We're fortunate enough to have all of our employees are organized, and so their elected leadership comes in and they give us updates on kind of what's going on within their respective organizations. So I believe LEA might be here today, and so I would ask their... Good evening.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, members of the board and cabinet. I'm Amy Thompson, President of the Livermore Education Association. I brought a few of our members with me tonight. We are not here tonight to be adversarial. In fact, for many of us, this is uncomfortable, but it's important. We are here tonight to sound the alarm. As teachers, we love our jobs. We love our students, and we believe our students deserve the best. We are concerned that the current conditions are not allowing us to provide the best for all of our students. We want to ensure all of our students have classrooms with teachers. Livermore is an award-winning district with award-winning schools, programs, teachers, and students. It's a nice place to work. Some might even say it's a destination district. This is true, but what happens to our award-winning capability when we are unable to attract teachers to deliver instruction? This is why we are sounding the alarm. Our compensation package is so far below that of neighboring districts that we have a diminished ability to hire and retain teachers. We currently rank 14 out of 19 districts within a 30-mile radius. We are on average about $8,000 per year below the top quartile. We realize there are working conditions other than pay that attract people, but such a large discrepancy will be difficult, if not impossible, to overcome. We hope our district and our board are listening to our concerns with a focus on understanding the concern and working together to address the problem. If this issue becomes adversarial, taking sides and listening with a defensive stance rather than an open mind, this will be damaging. If we allow ego to get in the way of an honest attempt to find solutions, if we decide there needs to be a winning side and a losing side, what will happen is our students will ultimately be the ones who lose. You will be hearing from a few teachers during public comment. We hope you listen with an open mind and an intent to work together to solve the problem. Our students deserve the best, and we want to work with you to ensure that our students win. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Stephanie? Is Stephanie Wagner here? Okay, coming up. Stephanie Wagner with CSEA. Good evening. Yeah, you can't do much without those.
Is that on? Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, getting older, sorry. Good evening, President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, School Board, and Cabinet. I am Stephanie Wagner, CSEA President. I was going to thank Ms. White for being here. I didn't realize she wasn't going to be here, so we appreciate her hard work. Tonight, I wanted to talk again about equality between the units. In November, the district negotiation team met with SEIU, where the district turned down the $3,000 per person and countered with 3% one time. SEIU countered with $2,500 per person. The next day, the district met with LEA, who is requesting 10.9%. The district said no and countered with 3% ongoing retro to July. LEA said no and then countered with the same 10.9%. When CSEA met with the district in December, our $3,000 was denied by the board and we were countered with a 3% one time. Why is that? Why are we not countered with the 3% ongoing retro to July? This is very discouraging. This did not make me feel like we were as important as LEA. LEA is very important, and I am not discounting the work that they do. We work hard, we are challenged every day, and we deal with a lot. Every classified member that I meet and talk with are very proud to be classified employees of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. They want the best for our students, like any other unit within our school district. I am unsure why that happened, but I do know that each unit is needed to make our district work. I hope we are thought of and treated equally in the future, with contract negotiations starting up in early spring. We want to make sure that we are all treated equally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if Kirsty is here, Governor? No. Okay. And she's with SEIU, and then our CMC, the confidential, is Lily Lopez. That's our representatives. So thank you all very much. And we're going to move into section 11. This is communication from the public. Now, communication from the public is a time for you, our public, to comment either in writing or verbally on any item that is not on our agenda. Kind of alluded to it a little earlier. And we, the board, may listen to the comment, and following may even ask clarifying questions of staff. But we can neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda, and this is all in accordance with the Brown Act. If you'd like to address a topic that is not on this evening's agenda, now would be the time to do so. We already went over the stuff in the little preamble about the 3 minutes. And I've got a few cards. If anyone has a card, you can pass it over to our assistants, one of our assistant superintendents, Ms. Thede, and it'll work its way around to us. And just a little housekeeping piece, because we are full right here. There's an exit right there next to the tall gentleman underneath the opener, and there's one back there and one in the corner and out through the lobby. So if we had to leave for any reason, we would just leave orderly through those doors. Okay, so the first one we have up is Natasha Progar. Good evening.
Good evening. It's been a while since I've spoken in front of a school board, so forgive me if I'm nervous.
That's okay.
All right. I don't know when my time starts.
Right now.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, Superintendent Van Schack and members of the board. My name is Natasha Progar. I am a teacher and parent of 2 elementary students in our district. I'm speaking tonight to address salary negotiations. Time is money, time is of the essence, time management, time is valuable. These are phrases commonly associated with time. I do my best to use my time wisely and efficiently every day, as I have for the past 20 years I've been teaching. I instill in my students to use their time wisely during the day so they can complete their work and assignments, although some things require more time and we adjust accordingly. Teaching in 2022 has made me realize just how much time is spent daily for all that I need or am expected to do. Along with my daily second grade teaching while I'm with my students, the following additional jobs are included during my contractual time. Activity coordinator. I'm an activity coordinator for class parties, especially if I don't have a room parent. I create the sign of genius, I research and create the party activities, I request the supplies. I'm a field trip organizer, which I have learned recently because I've been preparing for a field trip this Friday, requires more time and organizing than ever before. The steps to make a field trip happen is beyond time consuming. I'm a communication specialist, sending and replying to emails to parents, fellow colleagues, and administration. I'm also organizing parent-teacher conferences. I'm a curriculum planner. I organize student work for independent study contracts, organize and plan student work for extra students placed in my class when substitute teachers are not available due to the shortage of subs. I'm a curricular creator for substitute teachers. I'm preparing sub plans for when I'm out. Sometimes all the planning time is for nothing, which is time wasted, because my colleagues will absorb my students and my plans are not followed, which happened the other day. I'm an institute substitute teacher. When an official substitute is not available because of the sub shortage, I have to take an additional number of students to join my class of 21. This could happen with short notice, 30 minutes, or no notice. You're getting 8 kids to join your class in 5 minutes. I'm an inventory inspector. I order class supplies throughout the year. I'm a data interpreter. I check and evaluate student work, grade assessments, and complete report cards, which is a huge amount of time outside of my contractual hours. I'm a technology trainee. I'm learning and problem solving with my class Chromebooks, my Mac laptop, my class sound system, document camera, copy machines, and websites. I'm a custodial supervisor reporting on what jobs are incomplete in my classroom not being vacuumed, my desks are not wiped down, and looking lately around the school, the staff bathrooms are dirty, there's dirty toilets, toilets are not caulked in the staff bathroom, which are unsanitary and unfit working conditions. These are 10 additional jobs. How can one person, myself, complete these jobs within 6.5 hours? It's not possible, nor should it be expected. Each additional job listed has or could have its own individual salary. If I worked within my contractual hours, my job would be incomplete. I have 2 40-minute prep times during the week, which I squeeze in as much of what I can. Needless to say, this is not enough time, so I spend my time after school, after my contractual hours, completing all of my jobs because I want to give my students and families the best.
Watch your time.
I hope that LVJUSD listens and values my fellow colleagues and my time by approving the 10.9 salary increase for all that we do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I would ask, as we call the speakers up, be real conscious with the time. Tonight we're fortunate we have about a half dozen, but sometimes, we try to do the same thing all the time to maintain consistency. Jake Anderson. Good evening.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the school board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet. I am Jake Anderson. I'm a social studies teacher at Del Val. First, I'd like to brag about my school site. We've been recognized as a model continuation school nearly every year for the past 10 years. We provide a place that can be more adaptive and relational to students when they become credit deficient, and however that may happen. I absolutely love my site, but like many other places, we've run into many of the same issues. After last school year, we had a teacher leave our site and out of district. She and her family moved out of state because her salary could no longer allow her to live locally. While teachers leaving is not new, we started the year down an English teacher. I know that we're all aware of the teaching shortages across the nation, and I believe we all understand that this is largely due to teacher burnout, lack of support, and lack of pay. I do, though, think that we need to be aware of the compounding issues unique to our district. Our pay consistently ranks in the bottom 2/3 of local districts, many with competitive or even lower cost of living than Livermore. This lack of pay creates a cycle. When there is such a pay discrepancy locally, it means we either have underqualified teachers or worse, unfilled positions. This means that the remaining staff has to pick up the slack through mentorship, picking up more responsibilities, larger class sizes. That then in turn leads to teachers becoming more burned out. That then leads to them leaving the classroom and leads to more open positions. Many of us teachers are products of the district we teach in. We stand on the shoulders of legends that have taught here before us. Now we are trying to inspire the next generations of teachers that will come after us. Give them a chance to teach in the community we love. Many of us love working in this community. Many of us will continue to work in this community, even at that high pay discrepancy. But please, don't punish us teachers for the love and loyalty to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Noel Matern. Mr. Matern, Coach, you here? There he is.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, and everyone here and at home that cares for our students. My name is Noel Matern, and I've been a history teacher and cross-country coach at Granada High School for the past 21 years. I'm here tonight to speak for reasons that are life-changing for our teachers and students. A couple weeks ago, I was speaking with our coaching team, and one of them, a highly engaged second-year teacher, mentioned how she was being recruited to teach at Dublin and would make $17,000 more per year. That would make a significant difference in her life as she's getting married and looking for her first home. Personally, I didn't believe it, and I don't want to lose this coach, so I looked it up, and yeah, she'd make about $17,000 more. Plus, she'd receive an additional $2,100 stipend according to the current posting on EdJoin. A total of over $20,000 more when considering retirement. Maybe they don't get benefits, I thought. Nope, they get benefits too. I looked it up for myself, and I'd make $11,555 more per year in Dublin, not including more money in retirement. By working in our district, I'm losing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost $500,000 over the course of a 35-year-long career. It's not surprising that our district has trouble keeping teachers and attracting new ones, and this information makes me angry and demoralized. I want our teachers to believe that they have value and that their compensation should reflect that value. No longer should we accept single-digit increases to compensation which is already more than 20% lower than neighboring school districts. We should never accept anything less than equal pay with Dublin. We're all worth it. Now is the time for our teachers to organize and our union to get stronger, because when we work together united, we are greater than the sum of our parts. We can achieve more and be compensated equally. Let me stop any hint of false accusations. Our motivation isn't about greed, It's about being able to care for ourselves and about being able to care for our families while living in this region. Because when we lift ourselves up, together we can lift up our students. In fact, hundreds of studies have shown that as teacher compensation increases, so does student performance. So we should all be asking the question, why is student success more important in Dublin? And how can we resolve this problem? The solution is simple. Allocate and/or reallocate more money into the salary schedule to retain and attract teachers to improve student performance. Thank you for listening. I sincerely hope that all of us have a terrific evening and an even better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christine Davidson. Followed by Emily Wilson. You're on deck. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Board President Buono, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, members of the cabinet, members of the community, and especially tonight, my esteemed colleagues and friends. My name is Christine Davidson, and I teach science and STEM at Mendenhall Middle School. This is my 5th year in the district. I have participated as a school representative for Science Odyssey, and currently I serve as a member of the middle school internal prep committee. And I'm going to have to brag a little bit about how awesome Mendenhall is here. Champions in various sports, math count winners, spelling bee champions, after-school coders, county fair winners. We have many reasons to be proud of our school community. I wanted to share with you tonight my concerns regarding the impact of our lower compensation, which has in turn created a teacher shortage in Livermore. Mendenhall started off the year short of 1 full-time math teacher. It took a trimester to fill this position. And while this substitute was qualified, these math students now have a new teacher, which means they are now having to learn a new teaching style, have new expectations, deal with new norms. This uncertainty for students doesn't cultivate necessarily a desirable classroom, and it does make me wonder, could this year's FTE shortages in the district have been mitigated with a more robust and competitive compensation package? Competitive compensation does the following. Number 1, it attracts credentialed teachers to join our staffing community. I do believe that this helps build a more positive department and staff community that will encourage more collaboration and rigor in teaching practices. Number 2, it keeps current and specifically younger teachers like myself in the district. Yes, we love our students and our schools, but with the cost of living in the Bay Area, we also need to prioritize our families. Number 3, at the end of the day, strong school communities benefit our students. A pillar of the school community is our teaching staff. That is, without a doubt, what it is. We want our students and our schools to succeed, but we can't do that if our compensation isn't prioritized. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next is Emily Wilson.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, Board Trustees, Cabinet, and Community. My name is Emily Wilson, and I attended school in our district from K through 12th grade and went on to get my bachelor's in business marketing. I fully support our teachers asking for a 10.9% ongoing salary increase in order to ensure our students have the best education, to retain and recruit teachers, and because our district can afford it. In my 13 years as a student of our schools, I never had to experience a school year without a consistent teacher or a teacher that is not even credentialed, which is happening. It's shocking and heartbreaking how many unfilled positions we continue to have. The quality of our students' education is decreasing because of our staffing issues. My mom is a teacher at Granada and got her credentials specifically so she could work in this district. And unfortunately, she's constantly working outside of her contractual workday, and her salary is not sustainable to live on. Since becoming a teacher, she has always had to make sure she has a summer job in order to make ends meet in her single income household. Again, I reiterate that teachers' salaries in this district are not sustainable to live on, and we're going to lose some of our best teachers unless there's a change. I ask that the district prioritize being proactive instead of reactive with retaining and recruiting the best teachers that our students deserve. I'd also like to congratulate Stephen Druin on officially being sworn in tonight to the Livermore School Board. I'm looking forward to seeing him work with the teachers and community to create a positive impact on our schools. And lastly, I have some concerns to address with the community, district, and board. Many community members no longer feel safe or welcome to speak at these public meetings. Members of our community have been personally harassed and had their businesses attacked after speaking during public comment. At the last meeting, I was confronted in the parking lot by a candidate that ran and lost for school board this year. So I'm wondering what we can do to ensure that all voices are being heard and people are safe to speak at these meetings. A loud minority should not be able to threaten and intimidate people into silence if it goes against their agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Lisa Wilson. Good evening.
Good evening. And I'm not related to Emily Wilson. There's a lot of us. Good evening, Board President Bueno, trustees, student trustees, Superintendent Van Schack, and community. My name is Lisa Wilson. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Arroyo Seco Elementary. My colleague and friend, Jeannie Gellerman, was supposed to address you tonight, but like many teachers in our district, she is ill. We have a great team of fourth grade teachers at Arroyo Seco, and we call ourselves the 4/4. There's 4 of us. And we've been filling in for Mrs. Gellerman and helping her substitute teachers in the classroom while she's been out. And we're even teaching her students when there is no sub available. And I'm also filling in for her tonight. Jeannie's been a teacher in Livermore for 20 years and has loved working in the classroom with mostly 3rd and 4th grade students. Like every LEA member here tonight, she works hard during the school day, after school, in the evenings, and on the weekends. She does this because Livermore students deserve the best. This includes teachers in the classroom. This year, she was honored with the Teacher of the Year Award for the Livermore School District, with other teachers in Alameda County who are nominated for excellence in education. She said I could fill in for her tonight since I was the 2015 Livermore Teacher of the Year. We learned from our fellow Alameda County Teachers of the Year that teachers are some of the world's greatest problem solvers. We want to work together with our district leaders and our school board to bring the very best teachers to Livermore. Our district hired many new educators this year who are here tonight. Our neighboring districts offering higher compensation will be actively recruiting these teachers in 2023. Livermore students deserve the best, so please offer a competitive salary so our future Teachers of the Year don't leave for higher paying districts.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions, comments? Any board? Okay. Thank you all very much. We'll go into correspondence. I know some of you are going to go ahead. Feel free. We'll give it a quick break. I know. What the heck? Okay, because teachers are really good at filing out very quietly, we're going to keep moving. We're in 11.2. Formal written correspondence to the Board of Education shall be acknowledged if received by the board or in the superintendent's office by 4 p.m. The day before the meeting. This was one of the little changes. We got a late one. Formal written correspondence received after the cutoff time will generally be acknowledged at the following meeting. The Board Electronic Communications received via the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District website with all fields completed and verified. That'll be treated as formal written correspondence. So I know we had a small change on this. We had one late one. And with that, I'd ask our clerk, Trustee Prusso, if you could summarize.
I would love to. We have two, and then one added after the agenda was published. The first one is from Sherry McGowan, former librarian, encouraged the board and cabinet to report all book challenges and bannings to the American Library Association's Office of Intellectual Freedom and to seek their support as the challenge process is revisited. From Kirsten Zorhoff, parent, thanking LVJUSD teachers for all that they do and supports a salary increase. And then added after the agenda was published was again from Sherry McGowan. Oh, thank you, McGowan. I said it wrong. It's actually...
Oh, it's
Sorry.
spelled both ways.
There's a little bit of a spelled issue on here. Sorry. A former librarian who wrote in support of showing LVJUSD teachers how much we value them by prioritizing teacher raises. And that concludes the board correspondence summary.
All righty. Okay, we're going to go into our discussion items. And Mr. Ranchak, if you could run through those.
Thank you, President Bueno. We are continuing with our series of school reports this evening with two such reports. The first will be from Del Valle High School, and I'd like to reintroduce and bring back again Mr. Eric Taylor to provide us with some insight as to the goings-on at Del Valle High School.
Good evening again. It's nice to see you all. So this evening, I'm going to be sharing some information about our wonderful program. And so I have the clicker, so be careful. Okay, there we go. All right, so some of the highlights there's many highlights, but the ones I wanted to bring the most attention to are some of our programs. Our culinary program, which is led by Chef Diane Russell. We have our bicycle transportation program, which is led by Paul Grosecci. Our Youth Build program, which is led by Sarah, Subiondo, Tracy, Doug, and and that's it. And then we also have our Youth Innovation program, which is essentially a mentoring program. And the program is also run by Zoe Zanis and Joelle Glashenko from Tri-Valley ROP. All of these programs are extremely important to the success of our students, not just in school, but in life after school. We're a 6-year clear accredited WASC school. We are also a model continuation school for 9 years, if I did my math correctly. So our demographics, I'm taking last year's demographics, and what I like to point out is that it shows 128 students. We don't have a cohort of students that goes through all the way. We have students that come in at each trimester. We have students that graduate. We have students that transfer back. And so this is just a snapshot last year at a certain point in time. Our current enrollment is 149, and our demographics from last year to this year are similar. Our English language learner population is 20%, students with disabilities is 28%, and our social economic disadvantaged population is 60%. The next categories are going to be our ELA, math, CASP scores. And you'll notice that they are somewhat low. And so one of the things that we work with our students is we work on, first of all, the most important thing for our staff is to get to know our students, get to know who they are, build positive relationships with our students, and then we get to know a little bit more about their academic levels, and we're able to build them up. And so we do have some students that are below grade level, and we have some students that are far below grade level in both English and math. And our biggest focus is English, reading and writing comprehension. And the reason we want to focus on that is because that is something that will be present in their lives no matter what. So we want to build them up as high as we can get them before they graduate with us. And also with math as well too. We recognize that not everybody is going to go to a 4-year college. They might start at a junior college and move forward. But anyways, I digress. Back to how do we get to know these students? We take a hard look at data. We do it weekly. We look at credit earning. We look at attendance. We have conversations. That's the core of what we do. So you'll see that a lot in our action plans that are here as well too. And then our passing grades in core classes is 85% in all of our classes because we know we have a good idea of how we can help a student because we have a background knowledge, we understand who they are, and we're able to push them a little bit more in each of their prospective disciplines. Our next slide is attendance. Attendance is always tricky, and again, it all comes back to relationships, so it's very important for us to make phone calls, have good connection with parents. We do home visits. Mr. Martin, myself, our CWA aides, we all do home visits. We all take work back and forth for students that are on independent study that are not able to make it. We're always trying to make positive connections with our kids, and we're always communicating. So there's regular communication that goes home. And then our A through G completion rate, we want to continue to build Youth Build. We want to continue to build Youth Innovation Program. We want to continue to build these programs so students can see life outside of high school, what that's going to look like for them. Youth Build is very special because it focuses on the trades, which is really important for a core group of our students. And we want to grow other programs, maybe in cosmetology or other areas as well too, so students have the ability to move right from high school. They're excited to get their diploma to move into a career. And we support them with college as well too. EL students, so half of our students have reclassed in the EL program. Again, it comes back to monitoring credits, checking in with them. If we haven't seen them for a couple of days, text, phone call, home visit, taking a look at all the data, using our assessments that we give at the end of each trimester, which is English and math and social science and science. Our passing rate for algebra, using essential standards to focus. What are the key things that kids need to know before they move on to high school? That's what we really try to focus on in math and English as well. Our next slide is suspensions and college and career readiness. So suspensions comes down to personal connections with kids. We're in the hallways constantly. We're always looking at kids, checking in with them. If we see them upset, we just take them aside really quick and just check in with them, right? We try to get to understand problems before they start. So again, it all comes back to relationships and talking with families and just communication. So those are the two big things that we really focus on. Career and college readiness. I feel like a broken record coming back to Youth Build and stuff like that. These are the key areas that we want to continue to grow because these help move our indicator forward in our dashboard as well too. So college and career readiness, and the programs that meet that particular goal are Youth Build and our Youth Innovation Program because they're both Work Innovation Opportunity Acts grants. And then, so now I've talked a lot about these different components of our program, but I wanted to throw up one additional slide for you guys to take a look at. When I was growing up, baseball cards were a thing, and when you flipped a baseball card over, you'd see the stats. You'd see the RBIs, you'd see the home runs, strikeouts, you'd see all that information. And I've tried to capture that idea here with this particular student. The reason I picked this particular student was random. He recently graduated. He's going into the military. He's getting married. A very similar story to mine. And so I have this, I'm very proud of him. He's done a lot. And so when you see where he's been, I've tracked some metrics: attendance, credit earning, positive behavior, ELA, writing benchmarks, which are benchmark assessments that the entire district does, ELA, comprehension benchmarks, and algebra benchmarks. So when you see his progression, you see that he's attending 92% of the time at his previous high school. He's only earning 84% of his credits. And then 2021 is when COVID hits and his credit earning and attendance severely plummets. There's no positive behavior calls that go home because we're still developing that positive behavior intervention system. When he comes to us, he's able to get his footing. He is able to trust us. Those are his words. And he's able to begin to find success because of the small classroom sizes, because of the people that check in with him every day. Our school is brilliant in that way because we know kids. We know the names of their dogs. We know the names of their siblings. We know all kinds of weird, random facts about kids. But that's the connection piece. And so he's starting to feel comfortable, and you can see he starts to get more confidence because of the positive phone calls that go home, because he feels like he is seen. These are his words, not mine. And then he's progressing with his English as well too. So this is one of our many successes. Caesar is his name. And then our last thing, what we want to continue to grow is refine our system, because our system is not perfect. There's no system that is. But how we look at academic progress, how we look at social emotional well-being, how can we improve our graduation rate? How we can continue to get kids excited about life after high school, right? What sort of connections through mentoring or through youth build or other programs that are available out there. And then continue to grow our positive behavior intervention systems. When we make phone calls home, often we hear parents say, this is the first time in 11 years I've ever gotten a positive phone call home. And it still shocks me when I hear those things. So the students that you saw here tonight, many of them, it's the first time being recognized for anything positive. And so we're really excited to have our students up here tonight. They're wonderful kids. They smile all the time. They're happy. So anyways, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Trustee Wong.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I know sometimes when people look at kind of success of a high school graduate, they're looking at the things that aren't showing up here, like the CASP scores or UC A to G completion, and clearly there are different ways that, and I know from having been at Del Val, and especially been at graduation every year, how positive and excited the students and the families and all the staff, everybody is. And clearly success is measured very differently there. And you've talked about the student going to the military, and I know some going to youth build. Can you talk about other ways that the graduates of Del Val are successful? What do they do after Del Val? What are some of the paths that the students take?
You're on.
Oh, okay. Some of the other paths, many of our students go to community college, and there are supports to help them through the enrollment process. We have other students that will go into non-union shops, ABC NorCal. We have other students that will go into cosmetology. We have some students that just start working, and it could be just a regular job. And so there's kind of a variety of different opportunities for kids, but we try to help guide them as much as possible. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I know from having spoken with some of the students and families there that the staff and the administrators, the teachers are all very dedicated and have really made a big difference in the lives of those students. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. Trustee Pruso.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Del Val. I think there's a great culture coming on campus there. And I probably speak for all the trustees here. I think it's definitely our favorite graduation to attend. You never know what's going to happen at the Del Val graduation, but it's always good. It's always good. Kind of just jumping on what Trustee Wong said, there's a couple of thoughts that I have that are similar. And one that is, I feel like the CASP isn't really helpful data to look at for you in particular, just because kids are coming in and out anyway. So it's interesting for me to look at the other ways that we can assess. And one of those was your percentage of passing classes, and then also your percentage of students taking algebra and passing for the first time, 85%, which I believe is higher than our district percentage, which I think is great and is a tribute to your teachers. And I know that there's smaller class sizes and all of those things there, but I think that that's definitely something that we should be happy about and encourage. Yeah, so I just wanted to say, I don't really have any questions other than I just think Del Val's a great place. It's a special place, and you guys make it really great. So all your staff that's here, I mean, you're here tonight, so that's fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very blessed with our staff. They're very dedicated and caring. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pruso. Trustee Drone.
So I think one of the awesome parts about being here on the board is to get to look into classrooms. I taught at Tracy High School. I had my world, but to get to see the programming and to hear 6-year Clear with WASC is like, it's amazing. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the positive calls home. Did you systematize this? Is this part of the culture on the campus, calling home positively for parents? Because finding the time to do that, I think a lot of teachers know to do that, but to find the time and to embed that as culture is, can you tell a little bit about that?
Sure. So we started our PBIS process within the last 2 years. And so last year, a lot of the calls that were going home were from the vice principal and myself. And we would get that information from staff during our weekly staff meetings. And it's nice coming from us, but the teachers are the ones that are noticing this. And so what we decided to do this year was during our weekly collaboration, we dedicate 10 minutes to positive correspondence home. And so it's just 10 minutes on the board straight away. 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, send that email, send that text message or phone call or whatever it is, right? Whatever that communication mode that works with that family. And it's been great. I mean, I've called parents and they're just super excited to get something from the school in a positive way. So that's how we've embedded it in our culture.
Well, I was just going to say, one of my colleagues, he, shook hands and said hi to everybody and asked them how they were doing. And there were some kids that said, you're the only teacher that talks to me. And again, this outside of this school district. I'd continue it because I think, the impact of that is hard to measure, but especially for, the students at Del Val, it's going to mean a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Guzman?
Yeah, thank you. I also really appreciate the importance of the connection and the relationship building, but telling the individual that I see you and you have value and you are worthy, perhaps not in those words, but in everything that you do to help them successfully complete their credits and graduate. I agree with Trustee Druin that it's invaluable. Also, I did put in a plug for Youth Build, and for today, Trustee Wong and I were doing Leadership Livermore, and we went to 3 different employers within the city. And everyone, I was asking, what's entry-level jobs? When can we get our students out here? I have contacts with all of those. So I was thinking specifically of Del Val, but it's open to other high schools as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Having toured there and gone to the graduations, you do a great job over there, Ms. Taylor. And some of the things, whether it's the bicycle stuff you guys do in the back or the culinary stuff, all those things are stepping stones because it's all different kids. And I know that a lot of the kids have challenges that are unique. And one of the ones that it's just glaring is the socioeconomically disadvantaged. I mean, and we know that. Most of us know that. That's probably one of the biggest drivers that keeps people from being successful. You have to break that cycle. So putting those opportunities in front of them, whether it's business contacts, or it's the Youth Build program, or working with the kids through the trades, I know just from a singular perspective, anything we can do, anything I can personally do to help you make some of those connections for some of those kids. The kids that are at that school, those are the kids I grew up with. So almost everyone I knew was the kids you're teaching. I mean, that's how I grew up. So, and most of those guys went in the trades and did other things and maybe went to JC. I know the paths are all different, but a lot of credit goes to the folks that are teaching and the staff that you've put together. I know some of them over there, and it's not just challenging on the kids, it's challenging on the teachers because you have to look for different alternatives. And you guys are constantly exploring that. I don't see anything cookie cutter about Del Val, and that's probably why you guys have, you've been accredited and you've received a lot of awards. You had a gold medal or gold ribbon up on the front, a few years back. You guys have done a great job, and I know you guys walk the hallways, and that's probably why you're so connected. But I think it's one of those things that's going to be dynamic forever. The challenges are always there. And it's probably going to be more pressing because their parents are experiencing some of the challenges that all of us are in society. So hat off to you, and know that you have a lot of support.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I know our team here appreciates it as well, too.
You guys do good work
you.
over there. Any further questions, clarifications? Thank you very much.
Wait, I do have one just clarifying question.
Yeah.
So when a student graduates midterm or fall or what, is there some type of ceremony for them as well?
So there's the unofficial ceremony, which is we make an announcement over the loudspeaker, and the whole school will erupt in cheers. And then the student is free to go. And then we invite them back for our June celebration. And so students are able to participate in that. So both are equally special.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to both Mr. Taylor and Mr. Martin for being here this evening. You guys are doing outstanding work. And I'd like to welcome Ms. Val Nebo back to the front to describe the amazing work that she is doing at Arroyo Seco Elementary School.
All right, thank you again. It is my pleasure this year to serve as the principal at Arroyo Seco. It's been just an absolute privilege leading this year and getting to know my community, my teachers, and my students. So without further ado, Arroyo Seco is a special school to me because it definitely reflects the diversity of the Livermore community where I grew up. With that, it's just amazing to be part of this microcosm of Livermore and seeing how it functions at that level. We have very talented teachers with a broad range of experience. They bring in so many assets to the classroom, both those ones that are tied to good instructional pedagogy, as well as those softer skills that are needed to connect kids to school. And they all work very well together. One of the things that's unique about our school this year is that we do offer a special day class mild to moderate program. It's expanded to be kindergarten through 5th grade this year. What that means is that our students in the special day class mild to moderate program get all of their academic instruction 100% of the time in the general ed setting, alongside their general ed peers. This means a lot of learning for all of the students and the teachers in the model as well. Some of the benefits to this are that students really are exposed to a broader range of learning needs and learning styles. They're connected with students who otherwise they would be separate from in the learning environment. And there's unique opportunities for students to lead and to learn from each other. With the 2 teachers teaching at the same time, the idea is that we blend seamlessly to have students receiving instruction from 2 teachers, and they just view them that way, as well as supported by 2 paraeducators in the classroom. So if you were to walk into one of these classes, there's a lot going on. It can be a shift sometimes because it really does require a different structure and approach to teaching and learning. And it's something that our team is embracing, despite the challenges it presents as well. We have a really active and supportive PTA. They do an amazing job of assuring that our students and our parents and our teachers are supported in all that is needed to really make this a community for everybody. Obviously, at elementary school, we have that need for parents as well, learning how to navigate the school structure, and just being welcomed in and invited to be a part of the school and participate is really important. And our PTA is able to do a wonderful job of that. So our student demographics are based on last year's data as well. When you're looking at the 592 students, I can say admittedly that at this point, that number is slightly lower. That's consistent with what we've seen the last several years, and that is a slight decline in enrollment. We know that from Livermore demographic data that we are seeing lower numbers of students, so we definitely see that at our school. As I said earlier, our ethnic breakdown is a pretty good reflection of Livermore. Not perfect, but pretty good reflection. We have 11.3% of students who are emerging bilinguals as our English learners that we're working to support. I spoke a little bit about our students with disabilities, but beyond our co-taught class, we also have our students who are in the resource class. And then we're 18.4% socioeconomically disadvantaged. So this is the population that all of the following slides are striving to support. When you look at our success data, you'll notice that for both CASP, ELA, and math, that the planned actions are identical. But what I'll highlight right here is that that 53% proficient in math actually was a 10% jump from the previous year, which is obviously something to celebrate, but also something to take with a grain of salt because we're still seeing some of the residual effects from the pandemic and distance learning. So let's talk about those planned actions. When we look at the professional learning communities to monitor progress, group students, and deliver differentiated instruction, Arroyo Seco has been, I guess, on the leading edge of this. When I arrived at the school, teachers were already providing groupings for students and really doing a great job of monitoring student progress. The ability to allow time for those professional learning communities to meet for a half day 3 times a year has made an astounding difference, as has the organizational structures for collecting the data that exist. This has allowed our teachers to really look at the data for students that are at the lowest level as well as the highest level, assuring that we're getting the information from the targeted supports as well as the designated ELD additional supports that we're getting and the data we're collecting there. We're going to be looking more at that area in math as we progress through the year, but these groupings do allow for teachers to target interventions for students. And again, with the co-taught model, teachers are continuing to expand on this to create unique groupings, leveraging the ability to use the expertise of the special education teachers in support of students beyond just the special education classroom. Our attendance rate numbers really is one that we're kind of shifting the focus on simply because we're seeing overall a shift away from this focus on attending at all costs and attending when you're healthy and assuring the health of our community. With that being said, it's still important that we're addressing chronic absenteeism as it emerges. Often we're finding that is an indicator of families who are in need of more support. So we are working with our attendance staff, our CWAs, and outside agencies to address chronic absenteeism, as well as to reach out to grow our levels of support in those outside agencies to address the unique needs of each family. When we look at the data for what students are reporting from the Panorama survey, we have 63% with positive connection. And that's an area that is really important for us to continue to grow on. And some of the ways that we're doing that is through professional development. For teachers, that really has been an ask from the start of the year is how can we better provide those interventions and supports within the classroom. So some of the professional development for teachers has been specifically tied to trauma awareness training. Again, given that we are coming out of a pandemic and with what the research says about adverse childhood experiences, which originally was tied to health outcomes but expanded to look at educational outcomes, if we are to assume that many of our students are coming in with at least one adverse childhood experience, since one of those indicators would be a natural disaster, and when we can say that we definitely called for a state of emergency, that we can chalk that up as a natural disaster, and given that 2 adverse childhood experiences in life can provide lifelong health and educational impacts for students, that means that buffer for a lot of our students is gone. So if you have a student now who is their families are facing divorce, or somebody has a severe chronic illness in the household, we have a family whose students are already at that higher risk level. So it really is important to understand that and approach what we're doing in our systems from a lens of healing and providing those research-based buffers against those adverse childhood experiences that allow students to persevere through those traumas. Add to that, really building on teachers' ability to provide behavior-specific praise and to be familiar with culturally responsive teaching practices. We're doing a lot of work to assure that our students are getting those foundational supports beyond just numbers, but really looking at why that is necessary. So I already spoke about our English learners a little bit as our emerging bilinguals. We've seen slow progression on our LPAC levels, and we are working to provide more professional development in this area for our teachers for both designated and integrated English language learner development. When we look at our office referral data, really the purpose for that ongoing is to proactively address specific behaviors, looking at the time of day problems are occurring, and providing interventions for if it's particular students or if it's just looking at a time of day, what we can be doing differently during that time to try to address some of those and stay ahead of it. And more importantly, to really increase our collective capacity for restorative practices and reflective practices, both inside and outside of the classroom. Some of our internal measures are the Easy CBM data, which really looks at reading fluency. And what you'll see here is that we had 78% of our third graders fluent at the end of last year, and then 60% proficient for grade 1. And again, that goes back to what we're doing in our professional learning communities, using that data, not only from last year, but just the fall assessment to really target those interventions for students, group them by their area of need, and really set goals for those students with measurable targets and monitor those, reconvene and check in on those. So I've gone over a lot of this already. I don't think I need to spend too much time on it here, but some of the projects that we're working on are listed again for reference. The data-driven PLCs, we can probably build on that at this point, because one thing that I've been focused on with staff this year is assuring that we are looking at our vertical alignment as well as our essential standards to make sure that we really are saying that how we're assessing addresses those essential standards. And if we're not seeing that match up, then what are some of the things that we're building internally to measure our progress on what we have deemed the essential standards at our site? I don't have a good ending. I apologize.
All right. Thank you very much. Trustee Drone?
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about time and co-teaching. You know, hearing you do PLCs, hearing trauma-informed professional learning experiences. Did you have a magic wand regarding time, or do your teachers have enough time to co-plan, co-implement, and co-assess? Or I would just love to hear about that.
Yeah, so the co-planning time for co-teachers is something that is addressed contractually. For the most part, it really is an honor system that we're finding the time to make that happen, to be able to co-plan. Being able to use some of the instructional time that is built into the day that teachers would otherwise use is leveraged, and it's pretty easy at elementary because they are in a shared classroom to be able to find that time. And with the shared students, if they have science, for example, that may provide an opportunity to just sit down and kind of how are things going and recalibrate. So our teachers do leverage those opportunities as it is. And as far as the PLCs go, it is going to be that time that's built in. Like I said, they have 3 opportunities throughout the year to be able to meet for half a day with their PLC and just really look at the data that has already been organized for them, so that it's not a scramble to get the data together, but really to look at what we have laid out, set goals, target goals for students that we are grouping, set deadlines for that, and then progress monitor. Some of our Wednesday collaboration time on the calendar is set aside for that PLC work. It's also time is devoted to the co-taught teams to be able to meet and discuss some of the concerns that may be coming up with the co-taught model, and to be able to work together collectively to address any concerns that are coming up at any grade level.
Thank you very much. Trustee Prusso?
Yeah, I just had a question about the special day class co-taught. model, that is there one class per grade like that?
Yes,
Okay, so not all of the classrooms are that way, but one class per grade.
correct.
Okay. And then my other question was, I see that you talked about the trauma awareness training, which I agree. We've all kind of been through a trauma. How are the students' behavior this year compared to, I know this is your first year at Arroyo Secos, but you probably still know, compared to last year, is it improving?
I think that's difficult to answer. Again, when we look at the data that was presented, I think we'll have a better idea by the end of this year, based on what referrals we're seeing. I think that's been kind of dynamic, and it's pretty anecdotal right now for what we're seeing. But it's definitely been, from what I'm hearing from folks, it seems like it's been an adjustment. I think one of our staff members put it pretty well in saying that last year students were kind of returning to how to do school, and this year it really feels like now that they've reestablished trust with their schools, we're really seeing the trauma come to the surface and some of the behaviors that go along with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, makes sense though. Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Trustee Prusso. Trustee Wong?
Hi, I didn't see it mentioned in the presentation, so I'm wondering, is universal access time something that is happening at Arroyo Seco?
Yes, thank you for the clarifying question. It is, for our school, it's known as PAL, or Personalized Academic Learning Time. And again, that was one area where we were ahead of the curve. Our teachers have been doing that for several years already.
Oh, okay. And then just, I'm on the Tri-Valley SELPA, and I hear a lot of, Frank often talks about the co-teaching model, and I know it's a model for other districts, and it gets brought up a lot, and I sort of feel like I would love if there's an appropriate time to come and sort of see it in action, because I hear it being talked about in the abstract, and I feel like I can't really picture it. I don't really know, I have an idea of what it is, but I feel like it would be helpful at some point if I could just kind of see how it works.
Yeah.
So if that would be possible, I'd love to do that sometime.
Yeah, it is a model that I think you have to see to understand.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. Trustee Guzman?
I'm sorry, what I wrote was what you said, Trustee Prusso, and then I had another one, and it just, it had to do with the special mild and moderate. I understand now it's one class per grade, but you also talked about what I'm going to assume, like the compassion and the empathy, the characteristics that students are learning. Is that also do you see that also extending to classes that aren't co-taught among those students as well?
I think, again, with the rotations that we're doing, especially at 4th and 5th grade, because the SDC cohort is going to be rotating through with different classes for instruction, either math or reading or writing. They do get to have that interaction with all of their classmates. So I would say assuredly at 4th and 5th grade, yes.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Nice job. Okay, at this point, we're going to move into our action items. And Mr. Van Schack, if you can introduce our first one.
Thank you, President Bueno. I'm going to invite Assistant Superintendent Kelly Menke to discuss our first action item, which is the approval of a tentative agreement with CSEA for a salary increase.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, members of the board, and cabinet. So I am Kelly Menke, Assistant Superintendent. I'm here to request the approval of a tentative agreement between CSEA and LVJUSD. So our negotiating teams were able to come to a tentative agreement for additional 3% ongoing compensation increase for the 22-23 school year. This is an increase that's in addition to the 4% salary increase that was previously negotiated for and added to the 22-23 salary schedule. Pending ratification by CSEA membership at an upcoming meeting, the tentative agreement for 3% ongoing will be effective retroactive to July 1st, 2022. And superintendent's recommendation is to approve the tentative agreement between CSEA and Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? If no questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
President Bueno, I move that we approve the tentative agreement with CSEA and Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Trustee Prusso in support of the superintendent's recommendation on this item, and it has been seconded by Trustee Druin. Is there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Trustee Wong?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Druin?
Aye.
Trustee Guzman?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye, that motion carries unanimously, 5-0, and congratulations to all parties on that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. I'd now like to invite Assistant Superintendent Melissa Thiede to discuss with the board the appointment of the Local Control and Accountability Advisory Committee.
Thank you, and good evening, President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, and members of our board and cabinet. I am here to request your approval of our 2 advisory committees in support of the development and update of our annual LCAP. The local control funding formula does seek transparency, involvement, and accountability through the LCAP. The LCAP is adopted annually by the governing board in June typically. And the process of updating the LCAP or writing it every 3 years is done with the support of 2 board-established LCAP advisory committees. The first is the LCAP Advisory Committee itself, required to be comprised of a majority of parents or guardians representing English learners, foster youth, and our low-income students. In our school district, we do have a parent or guardian rep from each school. We have student representatives from our comprehensive high schools, and we have representatives from each of our employee groups. We also, the second advisory group is our English Learner LCAP Advisory Committee, required again to be comprised by a majority of parents and guardians and parents of English learners. In our school district, we've designated our District English Learner Advisory Committee, which also is parents of English learners, and we also have student representatives from our comprehensive high schools. You can see here the first committee. These are the names. I won't read them all to you, but they are listed herein for you. This is the LCAP Advisory Committee with the names of the individuals from each of our schools, the names of the representatives for our bargaining units or our employee groups, as well as the names of our student representatives. Susan Kinder and I facilitate this meeting for this committee. The second committee is our English Learner Advisory Committee. Again, you can see the names of the representatives from each school, as well as the names of our student representatives. And Lily Lopez from our curriculum department facilitates this meeting. Here is an overview of what the process is for approval of the LCAP annually. As you know, in January, we will begin our strategic planning and the development or update of our LCAP. February and March, we will conduct input sessions, or we refer to it as our listening campaign, to get input from all of our stakeholders. We will update our plan. This is an update year. We will come back to the various advisory committees, present it to them for input. We will, in May, solicit input in writing from the public and get responses from our superintendent. Then come to you in June at 2 separate meetings, the first of which is a public hearing, and the second meeting is where we will seek final approval of the LCAP. And the recommendation of our superintendent is to appoint the Local Control and Accountability Plan Advisory Committees listed herein. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. We'll start with Trustee Guzman.
Yes, thank you. For the DLAC and the LCAP English Learner Advisory Committee, when there's a meeting and work to be done, are there translators? What's the language of business?
Perfect question. We do have translators available if there are members of the LCAP Advisory Committee that require translation. We use identical slides for the DLAC meeting, and we have Lily Lopez, who is bilingual, who will do the presentation in both English and Spanish. And there are times when I will go and do the English portion, and she will do the Spanish translation. But there are parents who have other languages other than those two, English and Spanish. And when we have members on the committee who require translation in another language, we absolutely provide interpretation as well as translation of any written documents for them.
Okay, thank you. That was going to be my other question. What if they don't speak Spanish and it's another language? Okay.
Absolutely. We
Thank you.
absolutely provide that. We also provide childcare to make sure that there is not that barrier for families to be able to attend.
Thank you. Trustee.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you or we are ensuring that the unique needs of foster youth and socioeconomically disadvantaged students are reflected in these meetings? Do you have like parents that these are the foster youth parents that are represented, or are they parents at school sites that then have to, because if we have somebody that's, you know, in a position but they're speaking about, but they can't speak from personal experience, I'm just curious about the process to make sure that we're hearing the need.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So we do have the representative from each of the sites. We also do district-wide surveys, and we ask families to self-identify whether they are a foster parent. If they're an English learner, they can identify in multiple areas, and we're able to disaggregate the data as it comes in so that we can say, what are the parents of foster youth telling us? What are the parents of our English language learners? So the representatives at the committee are just that, they're representatives, but we do seek a broader voice before final decisions are made regarding how we develop the plan.
Thank you very much. Any other further questions? Okay, it's action item. I entertain a motion on this.
President Bueno, I move that we appoint the Local Control and Accountability Plan Advisory Committees.
I second that.
So a motion, Trustee Prusso, in support of the superintendent's recommendation on this, and it's been seconded by Trustee Guzman. Any questions on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Trustee Druin.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And Assistant Superintendent Thede, I just want to just a comment. I know this is probably one of the most comprehensive documents that we put together as a district, and it's a year-round effort, and you've presented a few times. A remarkable job on it all the time. That's why it comes across as very easy, but I know this is an easy document not to get right. And so I know all the back-end work, you do a great job on this, so really appreciate that.
All right, so now I'd like to invite Susan Kinder to present the board the first interim financial report and some information that goes along with that.
Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack. So tonight we present the first interim financial report. The California Department of Education requires that we submit 2 certified financial interim reports. The first interim as of October 31st, 2022, and then the second interim, which will be as of January 31st, 2023. So here is our first interim. So the projected revenues are currently $203,353,368. Projected expenditures of $198,695,726. We have a transfer in of $13,662, which is a $4,671,304 difference between revenue and expenses. And then we add that to our beginning fund balance of $18,732,000, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $23,403,382. So yes, that is a very large ending fund balance. So let's look at the components of that. We have a revolving fund of $50,000. Our inventory of supplies is about $200,000. We keep a minimum 3% reserve, which is a 3% of our total expenditures of $5,960,882. And then we have restricted funds of $16,854,911. And there's 4 categorical grants that make up this amount. So we have the Art Music Instructional Material Block Grant, which you just approved a plan for in October. The Learning Recovery Block Grant of $7,266,98, and Educator Effectiveness. This is money that we received that you have a plan in place. It's over a 3-year period. And then lastly, the Early Learning Opportunity Grant of $86,000 for paraeducators. So these are all one-time funds, and they require plans of how to spend them. So they currently are not in the expenditures yet. And then lastly, we have the unrestricted funds of $337,589. So that's what we have left, and all that combined equals the $23,403,382. So the differences between the 45-day revise and the first interim report. First, we have closed our books for the 21-22 year. So when we closed the books, or when we first adopted the budget, we projected ending fund balance from 21-22 of $10,872,966. But when we actually closed the books, the ending fund balance was $18,732,78. And so that's a difference of $7,859,112. So that becomes our so the ending fund balance from 21-22 becomes our beginning fund balance for 22-23. So that $7.8 million is broken up between unrestricted and restricted. On the unrestricted side, we had an assigned balance of $1,487,217 for the textbook adoption. So during the summer, we put in orders for the textbooks, for the science textbooks, but we hadn't received them yet, so we had to carry those funds over to this year to pay them. And then on the restricted side, those are categorical grants that were budgeted but were not yet spent. And so those funds have fell to the bottom line, and then we will move them back into expenditures in the 22-23 year so that they can be spent. If that makes sense. So the total difference is really $17,912 to our ending fund balance. Now on the expenditure sides and revenue sides, we had a small increase to our LCFF revenue. That's their local control funding formula because of trailer bills that got approved in August. So that was a positive. But we also had additional staffing, substitute costs, and contracted services increases. So we needed to increase our expenditures by $1,184,117. And then we also had adjustments to indirect costs because as we brought in the carryover, we were able to charge indirect costs, and that's a positive. So overall, the change to the ending fund balance from the 45-day budget revision is $846,605 to the negative. So the next part of the first interim is the multi-year projection. We are using the dartboard that we received from school services. So you may have heard at the CSBA conference that you went to that the Legislative Analyst Office came out with a COLA that's closer to 8%, but at this time we were using 5.38 and 4.02, so we're a little bit on the conservative side. We are projecting a ADA, that's our annual average daily attendance of 12,450 for the next 2 years. And then we remove all one-time revenues and expenditures for the outer years. So the $15.7 million in one-time block grants, we remove those from revenue. We removed the $6.4 million in carryover, and we removed the $1.5 million in the textbook funds. And then we make sure that we include step and column because that is a natural progression for all of our bargaining units. So now I want to just kind of give you a little example of what declining attendance does to the revenue. And I say declining attendance because it could be also a declining enrollment, but what we're experiencing is also declining attendance because in the past we used to have about a 95 to 96% attendance rate, and it has dropped substantially. It's more like 93%. But I just want to show on an example, a very simple example. So this is a district that has an ADA of 100. And at this time, year one, the local control funding formula base is 10,000. So to calculate their revenue, you would take 100 times 10,000, that would give you revenue of 1 million. So now let's think about year 2 and assume that the COLA was 10%. So that would make the LCFF base $11,000. But let's assume that their ADA dropped to 95. And it could be their enrollment declined, but it could also be just that their ADA declined. And in this case, you would take 95 times 11,000, and their total revenue would be $1,045,000. So even though COLA was 10%, the actual year-over-year COLA for them is only 4.5%. And the reason I want to show this is just because you hear a lot about COLA and they're big numbers. You can't just take the revenue and times it by a percentage and assume that's how much we receive. Also, in this situation, you couldn't sometimes when your revenue decreases, you can reduce expenditures to go along with it. But in this case, if their enrollment has not changed, their staffing is going to be the same, their overhead is going to be the same. So they would not be able to adjust their expenditures. So another thing I would just want to talk about is we have been getting questions about our local control funding formula increased 14 million year over year from 2021 to 21-22. No, sorry, now I'm messing my years up. 21-22 to 22-23. So where did that funding go? So these are the expenses that we included in our budget. Step and column cost approximately 1.7 million. The STRS and PERS increases were 2.2 million. And I'll just say, last year STRS was 16.92%, and this year it's 19.1%. And then last year PERS was 22.91%, and this year it's 25.37%. The good news is we're at a plateau now, and so next year will no longer increase unless the STRS and PERS boards decide to increase it when they meet. But at this point, we are not including any more increases, so that's a positive. So then we also needed to include the competitive compensation of 3% from last year and the 4% for this year. And the reason we did that is because the 3% for last year, we actually covered from one-time funds. But now it's ongoing, so we need to make sure that it's included in ongoing. And this is not including the 3% that you just approved, by the way. And then utilities insurance, we increased by 200,000. Transportation and non-public agencies and schools for special ed have increased quite a bit. It's 1.5 million that we increased there. And then additional staffing and contracts increased by 1.1 million, which I mentioned earlier. So overall, that's about 14.5 million. So now let's move on to the multi-year projections. So this first column is the numbers that I presented to you. That is our first interim. And then when I apply those multi-year projection assumptions, we are showing that we have a 3% reserve for all 3 years. We are deficit spending in year 2 and year 3, but that's planned deficit spending because if you looked at our assigned balance, that's that restricted funds, those are being spent down. So our unassigned balance actually improves from the 337,589 that we have this year up to 3,748,644 in year 3. Again, this is prior to the 3% ongoing adjustment that you just approved. So that will be included in the second interim. So what's next? We look forward to hearing the governor's budget proposal in January. We will then have a budget workshop. And then the second interim will be as of January 31st, and it will be presented to you in March. And it will include any new board decisions, like the ones you just made tonight, and then the new budget assumptions for the 23 through 25 years from the governor's state budget proposal. And with that, the superintendent's recommendation is that you certify that we are positive based on the current projections, that we are able to meet our financial obligations for the current fiscal year and the next subsequent 2 fiscal years. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Trustee Guzman.
So, thank you. I have some clarifying. So, it helps me understand this like when I relate it to my household's budget. when I'm looking at the first interim report, or what one of the very first slides, projected revenue, how much money we have coming in, projected expenditures, how much I'm going to have to spend on utilities and all that. Then there's a line item, transfers in, and then in parentheses, out, which to me is an oxymoron. What does that mean?
Here, let me just go to that slide, if I can get back. So it's a very small, that transfer in right there, right?
Right, yes.
So that is, it would be out if it was in parentheses, is what that means. But that's just from other funds. It's a transfer for the retiree trust fund that we pay money to a retiree trust, but we also charge other funds for that amount, and for like adult ed, child nutrition, and the bond. For those employees that work in there, we charge a percentage and bring it back into the general fund, so that when we make the transfer to the trust, it comes from the general fund.
Okay, so I'm going to go with my analogy with the household. So is this me taking money out of my savings to transferring money in from a savings account or something?
It's like your uncle drives your car and you need to make the lease payment, but he gives you some money towards that lease payment.
Okay.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Druin?
On the LCFF increase 14 million, where did it go? I think I understand what step and column is referring to, but I'd like to know what that is from your perspective.
Sure. So if you look at a salary schedule, so every bargaining unit has a salary schedule. The LEA salary schedule is the only salary schedule that has both step and column. All the other units just have steps. It just goes straight across. So in a teacher's salary schedule, they move down a step every year, and then they move over a column if they take additional courses. So after they get 30 or 60 units, then they can move over a column. And it's typically 5% for each step and 5% for each column.
Got it. Yep, that's what I thought.
Trustee Prusso?
Okay, so I have a couple of comments. So my first comment was, that was a great example for the declining attendance for the ADA. And that I did notice when Arroyo Seco, when Ms. Nebo gave her presentation, that I felt like their attendance seemed kind of low. It was at 92%.
Correct.
And her explanation, and it makes sense, we've been through a pandemic, and in the past, when my kids were young, it was like, you go to school unless they're throwing up or they have a fever, right? And now it's a little bit different. So that's impacting our ADAs. That, I just want to, besides declining enrollment, because
Absolutely,
we're
that is
having
what-
less.
That is what we are seeing. Now, fortunately, the state has allowed us to do a 3-year average, so it's softening the effect,
Okay.
but there's still a definite effect.
Well, and I know last year we still had quarantine times, right? So that put people on 9, 10-day, whatever. Okay, that's interesting, because then it's like, even if your COLA goes up, if your ADA goes down, it doesn't really matter. And then again, we don't want sick kids coming to school, especially right now. So like, I get it's kind of a tricky spot to be in.
And just to put it in financial perspective, a decrease in ADA of 2%, a $3 million loss in revenue for the district. So when
Okay.
we say we went from 95 to 93, I mean, there are real dollars behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that was nice how you put it. It made it really clear. It's not something that I had really considered. And then also, I had noticed with Arroyo Seco that I felt like that seemed low. And I know our elementary attendance is usually lower than our high school anyway, but still, it felt low to me. Okay, and then I had another, could you just give maybe a little bit more details on why our increase, looking at the 14 million, where did it go? Why our increase for transportation and non-public schools went up, and also our additional staffing contracts, just maybe not like, obviously like super detailed, but just like a little bit more detail on what was different this year maybe than last year with those two expenses?
Sure. So transportation increased. We have a new vendor, and they maintain their insurance like they should, and so they charge more. And so we're finding that our transportation costs went up substantially. And then the non-public school agencies and schools, both, they increased their costs, and we're kind of at the mercy of.
Okay, so it's more of like an increase of costs as opposed to like an increase in students who are using those services, or is it both?
I'm going to say it's mostly an increase in cost, but there may be a small
bit.
increase in usage as well.
Okay.
The non-public agencies, we're using quite a bit of those because we're having a hard time finding specialty services
Yeah.
like speech and like occupational therapy,
Yeah.
those kind of services. It's hard to find people, and so we end up using an outside agency for those
Right.
services. We'd prefer to hire our own, but sometimes we don't have that luxury.
Okay. And then similarly with staffing and contracts, that bump also.
So the additional staffing, as we started the year, we ended up having additional classes, or there were additional staffing needs. Like Chris will adjust as he sees the enrollment or how the master schedule is looking. And so we did have that. And then contracts, we had, well, we also have the increase in substitute
So- yeah, I was
costs.
thinking
We had new stipends. I mean, there was a lot of additional things that I think you heard earlier that we negotiated that also had to be increased into or added into the budget.
We also had a significant number of students whose IEPs call for one-to-one aides. And so
Okay,
that
yeah.
also increased the number of paraprofessionals that we had to hire this year.
Okay. Yep, thank you. That was helpful.
Thank you, Trustee Pruso. Trustee Wong?
Staying on this chart, because I think this is the key chart in the presentation tonight, because I think several of the speakers tonight said, they know we have money and we have this increase in LCFF. And so is this saying, yes, there was an increase, but it's already going to all these things. So we don't really have this additional money sitting around that we can give away.
Correct.
And so if we did want to increase salaries, it would have to come through making cuts to programs and things like that to find additional money.
So any significant changes to salary, and if significant being like upwards of 5-6%, would require some substantial changes in the academic program. So the biggest, obviously, would be in some districts would be class size increases, for example. And so we look for ways to become more efficient. And so we're in the process right now of examining all of our programs, all of our services, all of our staffing ratios to determine whether or not there are more efficient ways we can do those things and free up some funds that way. And it's possible through that process that we'll find hundreds of thousands of dollars perhaps. But for example, a 10.9% increase would be about $13.5 million. For us to identify dollars at that level would require some significant changes to program. And we'll examine those as possibilities, and we'll bring those to the board and say, here are some changes that we could make in order to free up dollars for compensation increases, and then it becomes a matter of prioritization. Some of those programs might be more important, some of them perhaps not so much. And so we will definitely present those as options to the board in January.
So those aren't the types of changes we can make immediately. That would be
That would
next
be
year
next
at the
year, yeah.
earliest.
Any staffing changes, we're under contract for 22, 23. So we couldn't just remove employees mid-year to free up those kind of dollars. That would have to be for the 23, 24 school year.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful to clarify. And then I just want to clarify something you said, Superintendent Benshak, earlier, if I can find it. Oh, you said a decrease of of 2% is equals a decrease of 3 million? Is that what, okay, I just want to make sure I got that right.
I think it's more like 2.89, but
Okay. And so do we expect because, I don't know how long this declining attendance is going to continue. I feel like we're all more cautious now of being out in public when we're sick with anything, whether it's just a cold or flu or COVID. So I don't know if that will go back to the 95, 98% attendance we used to have. So do we think the state will adjust to that in some way, either by, we can't keep doing a 3-year average. That's going to go down eventually anyway. But I guess, I don't know, I'm asking you to have a crystal ball.
Yeah. Well, there's been some significant lobbying going on in the state of California, because many states in our nation, they don't base funding on attendance, they base it on enrollment. And in California, they decided that de-incentivized school districts to get students to school, I think primarily LA Unified. And so they said, we need to give them a reason to encourage kids to come to school, so we're going to fund them based upon how many kids actually come to school. So there's been a lot of talk in Sacramento about changing that, because what it does is it encourages school districts to tell students to come to school even if they're sick, because it has such an impact on revenue. And that's obviously counterproductive, particularly when it's, you have a pandemic going on. And so there are still rules around COVID, and there still are rules around attendance regarding COVID. And so that is keeping our attendance low, just COVID by itself. But also there's a growing understanding, I think Principal Nebo mentioned it, that in the old days, the only times you stay home are if A, B, and C. Now I think students are staying home if there are milder symptoms. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it keeps the school community safer, but it does have a fairly dramatic impact on revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Just on that one topic there, you would think that statistically, across the board, within even districts or areas, Northern California, Southern California, that your attendance and your sick rate is going to be statistically the same, very similar. Like we were in the mid to high 90s. So if something happens that's catastrophic and the aftermath says now we're going to drop down 2 or 3% in our attendance, you could just build that into the model and say anything below that amount you would be penalized on, which would still give you your incentives. So you could just move the number.
Yeah, there's really good data on the average number of colds a 7-year-old will get in a school year. They have data that goes back 20, 30 years on how many days you can expect a student to miss school because of actual illness, not days off for whatever, family trips, and they've calculated that, and they estimate between 7 and 10 days a year. And so we can kind of build that in. That's an expectation. That number's gone up significantly over the last couple of years, but you're right in that if the state knows that that's going to be, you're not going to get 100% attendance. We don't want 100% attendance, because then you've got kids coming to school sick. But you'd think that if the state knew that 96% is sort of the target rate, that they could create a funding model around that. They just haven't done that.
The acceptable amount of sick outs would be 2%, 3%, whatever the number, but analysis would show that easy.
Yeah, employees get 1 sick day a month. And they didn't just make that up. They did studies over years. What are the likely number of sick days? And they use that as their model. And so for an adult, it's about 10 to 12 days a year. So that makes sense. And they don't make the same allocation for a student. The student's expectation is 0. We don't lose funding for employees who miss 6 or 7 days a year. We lose funding for students who lose. So it's interesting.
A question, Ms. Kinder. The step-in column, go into that one. That would be a consequential impact of an increase to the base, correct? If you increase the base, your step-in column are going to go up proportionally. And is that what we're attributing the 1.7 million to?
So that's the natural progression of employees from one step to the next. And so our system automatically pushes everybody over, and we could see how much it costs.
But it's but that's cyclical. In other words, there's people who retire and there's new people who come in. It probably isn't a true flatline linear projection. It probably bounces a little bit. So
Well, the hardest thing to project is column because we don't know how many teachers are taking extra courses. So that's kind of just on a average.
So each year we do this, we break that out, or is this 1.7 attributed to the increase to the base?
No, it's based on actual employees. So it doesn't have anything to do with the revenue side.
So the base has no impact on step and column?
When you're saying base, I'm assuming you're
Well,
talking LCFS
if you were to
base?
give a X for, yeah, on salary, the base, yeah. Not the base
Oh,
revenue.
I got you. Okay,
The
I was like,
base.
base.
Like for, and I'm wondering, so if you get 1% increase to the base salary, that model, it has an impact on step and column.
Correct.
And is that what we're attributing the 1.7 to? Is those the 3 and the 4?
The step and column would be whether if we gave a 0 compensation increase, we would still have step and column.
You'd still have it, but you have people who leave and you have others who come through, so it shouldn't change much. If your base cost didn't change, your employees kind of track through on
It
it.
just depends on how many you have that are still stepping and those that are on the top, right?
Correct.
But yes, there is going to be retirements, and that's going to be a savings.
That's going to be a savings, and then new people coming in, that's going to be.
But the difference between steps, say it's 3.5%.
It's 5.
And so whether you're moving from 2 to 3 or 6 to 7 or 9 to 10, you're still increasing that same percentage. And so until you get to the very end and you're not stepping anymore, you're going to see yearly increases. And so even if you change the base, you still have the yearly increases.
But in all fairness, it's not a static model. It's not like it's not a mouse and a snake that moves through. You have incoming people who cost less and people who are more senior that cost more. So it's the same mouse tail to head. It's the same thing moving through. Your costs are reduced by your senior folks leaving, and they're also reduced by your incoming people coming in. But that's relatively constant, I would think, unless we had a big blurb in there where.
That's predictable, yes.
It's usually about 20 retirements a year.
Which, and probably correlates to about the same amount of people who are hired, because it's a constant number.
Yeah. So out of 700 employees. it's not
Unless we
huge.
reduce staffing, for example.
Okay. All right. And, okay, and then on the public agency thing, do we know how much of that was transportation, the 1.5, the split on that? The NPS versus the transportation cost?
Well, the transportation went up quite a bit, but we also got an offset of revenue from the state for the first time, which is well needed because our transportation just went up quite a bit. I know I have Ms. Fiskus in the audience. She might be able to, it was close to, transportation alone was probably at 2 million. 1.5 to 2 million increase. Actually, some of that was last year, though, I think,
In allocation?
in what we paid, I'd say in 19.
The cost went up.
Yes.
Okay. And it kind of went to that too, because you had some non-public agency costs because we didn't have those positions. Where would the savings on not having those positions be reflected? Or are they reflected in that aggregate amount?
So the savings, so we have vacancies, and we do adjust our staffing to, so we continue to try to fill those positions because our hope would be that we can close out the contract and actually hire the person. So we have vacancies in our staffing, but we also adjust knowing that they probably wouldn't get hired right away. So there is some adjustment made for vacancy savings, I should say.
One of the things I think, though, with non-public agencies is we have 10 students in a classroom with a teacher, and 2 of the students in that classroom go to non-public schools. We still have the 1 teacher in the classroom. So we haven't saved on staffing, we've just increased expenses because those 2 students are now in a new location where there's a cost.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to the comment that was made earlier, maybe I captured it wrong, where we we're incurring some of these costs because we weren't able to provide the service because we couldn't fill the positions. So if we couldn't fill the positions, there should be a corresponding savings. And is that corresponding savings represented in the 1.5, or is it found somewhere else to offset this and lower that number?
It's included.
It's included, okay. And then my final thing is, it says, where did the 14 million go? When I add the numbers up, it comes to 14.5, so it's about $500,000.
Yes, it's a little bit more than, it's just rounding.
Okay.
We
All righty.
we got a little bit more than 14, and we spent more than 14.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Action item, yeah, please.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2022-2023 first interim financial report.
We have a motion by trustee Prusso.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Prusso. It's been seconded by trustee Guzman in support of the superintendent's recommendation. Any questions, comments on it, on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Trustee Druid,
Aye.
myself, aye. Trustee Wong,
Aye.
trustee Guzman,
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. And that motion carries. And so, and based upon that, the statement is that we, from my position here as president of this governing board, we certify that based upon the current projections that the district will be able to meet its financial obligations for the current fiscal year and subsequent 2 fiscal years.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty.
All right, our last item is nomination for the 2023 California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. You'll recall that we brought this at an earlier meeting, and there wasn't any significant interest. That has changed, I think, and so we're bringing this back, and we're inviting the board to nominate one of your colleagues to run for the position of CSBA Delegate Assembly. Representative would serve a 2-year term.
So I will
Yes.
nominate trustee Wong, who is willing to do this for us. I actually think this is really great. That's something that I thought was great that Ann was connected with, and I felt like it was really helpful for our board for us to have those connections. So I'm happy that you're willing to do it. So I nominate trustee Wong.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Any further nominations? All righty.
Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Trustee Druin.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong.
Do I vote?
Yes.
Okay. Aye.
Always
Thank
vote for
you.
You can
yourself.
vote no if you want.
Yeah.
Maybe? No, aye.
Thanks for accepting it and enthusiastically, yes.
Okay.
5-0. All righty. And you guys take care of the paperwork on the back end. All right. Okay, so this puts us into our consent. I think we have 13 of them this evening. And so if anyone would like to move the consent items in their entirety, it'll be 14.2 through 14.14.
Mr. President, I move that we approve consent items 14.2 through 14.14 in its entirety.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Oh, she got you. We have a motion by trustee Wong. It's been seconded by trustee Prusso. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Trustee Wong.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Trustee Druin.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Consent resos, I believe there's 3 this evening. And entertain a motion, this is 27, 28, and 29 for the current calendar year.
President Bueno, I move that we approve resolutions number 27, 2223, 28, 2223, and 29, 2223
Thank you.
in their entirety.
I second.
Motion by trustee Prusso, it's been seconded by trustee Druin, and to move the consent resos in their entirety. Without any questions, Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Myself, aye. Trustee Druin.
Aye.
Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Trustee Wong.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. All right, that's it, and we're going to move into, we didn't move anything separately in 16, so we'll just go right to the board member reports, and we'll start with Trustee Guzman.
Thank you. Okay, so these past few weeks have been busy, good busy. In early December, I, along with the entire board and superintendent, attended the California School Board Association conference. During the conference, I spent my time learning from other school districts and community leaders and supporting their teachers, staff, and students. I was particularly interested and in awe with what Jefferson Union High School District, right across the bay, is doing to attract and retain teachers in their schools, combating the high cost of living in the area. It makes me wonder if we could do something similar here, and it does have to do with workforce housing. In addition, I had the pleasure to speak to Livermore High School's Mr. Barajas Corbin Spanish for Native Speakers class last week on the topic of civic engagement. Thank you to Principal Limbo and Vice Principal Noble for the campus tour. And to the students of Mr. Barajas Corbin, I have a special shout out to you. No se olviden su idioma natal, ni las historias de sus padres, sus familiares y sus ancestros. Los dos idiomas y su cultura les servirá en su propia carrera, les aseguro. Tenga orgullo en eso y que sí se puede. Also, today, Trustee Wong and I spent the day with the Leadership Livermore, organized by the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today's theme was big business. We toured the facilities of 3 Livermore employers, TopCon, Drumexler, and CMEX, and know that at each site I was making connections with their leadership, figuring out how to get our Livermore students on their facilities for some career exploration. Know that I'm looking out for you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Drone?
As this is my first board meeting, I'm excited. I think a lot of my time has been spent both filling out the technical paperwork necessary to participate in this awesome way, but also learning the culture and institutional knowledge. I think it's been a pleasure to see the hard work of everybody in Livermore Unified School District, and I'm looking forward to the next several years learning more and helping to participate to the positive culture here. I too participated in the California School Board Association's conference. It was the best conference that I've been to, and that's kind of a lot. I can go to a lot of education conferences. For me, going to the LAO's presentation on the budget analysis was enlightening, but also I had the privilege of seeing how Coachella Unified School District, how they're leaning in and meeting the ethnic studies graduation requirements. And it's a big challenge for a lot of school districts, but I was pleased to see and hear a lot of CSUs stepping up to help with certifications to make sure that our teachers are prepared to meet this important challenge and work. And so I'm looking forward, moving forward to make sure that our teachers are positioned, are in a position of strength to help meet the requirements, but also help students learn about ethnic studies in a positive way. I also volunteered in my children's classrooms.
Nice job. Thank you. Trustee Prusso.
Just like everyone else, we've all been busy this last month. Before going to the CSB conference, I attended the Engineering and Architecture Advisory meeting. It's a Tri-Valley meeting connecting teachers and educators with industry, and it's just a great program and a great way to get our students apprenticeships and field trips and other learning camps and experiences. So that was put on by ROP. Also attended our algebra task force meeting with Mr. Krolikowski, and feel like we learned a little bit of math, which was good for me because I'm learning that I am not good at math yet, because I'm learning mindset shift. That's what I've learned from Algebra Task Force. But it's just exciting to see the teachers working together and coming up with plans to really enhance our algebra classes. Also, we had an ROP board meeting last week. Wanted to say our trustee Megan Rouse from Dublin, she is no longer going to be the trustee anymore. She's retiring from school board, and she's just been amazing to work with, and I'm going to miss having her and as a colleague over at Dublin, but she'll hopefully remain a friend. And then I also needed to just a shout out too that our ROP received our largest CTIG grant, $3.3 million, which is pretty amazing. So big shout out to Julie and Suzanne, the ROP people who put together that grant and got that funding. And then also, like everyone here was able to attend CSBA. There were so many great opportunities for us there, besides learning so much from all of the other schools there in California. I think we learned a lot from each other, and we had a great time team building and just sort of spending time together. And then just really quickly, we had our Tri-Valley Educational Collaborative this past week, again with Pleasanton, Dublin, Livermore getting together, sharing best practices, ideas. I think it's just so awesome since I've been on the ROP board and have opportunity to go to these meetings to see how collaborative we are with our Tri-Valley partners. And I think it's really important. We learn so much from each other. We help each other. And I'm learning the longer I've been on the board that I don't think that that's typical. And so I think we are really sort of blessed, lucky, however you want to say it, to live in this area where we are such a giving educational community. So I think that's it. I know it was a lot of stuff, so.
Thank you. Trustee Wong.
I also really enjoyed the CSBA conference. It's the best one I've been to so far. I've focused mostly on legal and financial kinds of workshops, and they were extremely helpful. I wish I'd attended those from the beginning. Last week was our now monthly COVID-19 update from state and county public health. And I think you all know the numbers are going up, and we're now in the yellow tier. So they're encouraging everyone to get your boosters or vaccines if you haven't, and also wear masks when indoors and as much as you can. I just want to say, Algebra Task Force, our retired teacher, Sharon Abri, gave a great presentation on number sense that I'm still thinking about. We had an intergovernmental meeting where we talked about how school districts, City of Livermore, and LARPD can work together on hiring challenges that we all have, and perhaps things like job sharing across the agencies, which is an interesting idea. There are a lot of holiday concerts coming up at the schools. I see from my board calendar, it's filling up with holiday concerts everywhere, so I encourage the community to go out to those. And I'm going to, I've received another exciting invitation to be a mascot at an elementary school. I won't say where, so you'll just have to kind of try to guess which one is me. And then for those who celebrate, Hanukkah starts on Sunday. Happy Hanukkah.
Get your candles. Thank you. I as well went to the CSB, and that's always a good opportunity. And we say CSB, it's California School Board Association, and they host it in Southern California, and they host it up in Northern California. They alternate years, and it's where the elected members of all the respective school boards have an opportunity to go down there and get presented on some common topics, some current topics, things like that. And this year was able to actually present some of my colleagues. There was a community unity with school boards, and was well attended. So it's a nice opportunity to go down there, and has to go through a little screening process. So it'll be nice having one of our trustees as a delegate on the delegate assembly. It kind of puts us on that circuit, so that'll be a positive. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but I wanted to thank Mr. Druin for putting himself forward. It's not an easy thing to get elected, literally, and then also just to put yourself out there like that as a public figure, and to be able to, take some of those hits, but to be a real productive thing. I love this rendition of the board. I think the school district's in really good hands. We have great leadership, and so we're gonna be able to do some really positive things for the kids in Livermore. And we've got some hurdles we're gonna have to go through. There's some funding things. Clearly, there's some things with negotiations we're gonna have to get settled out. But no one has lost focus on what the important thing is in this district, and that is the children and the kids that we're all here for. And I think we all share that common goal. So we'll get wherever we have to go. But I think that is we're student centric, and I think that's one of the things we even talked about when we were down at CSBA. So thank you very much. And lastly, I know one of the folks came, Mr. Matern came and spoke, But for those who may not realize that accomplishment, to have nationally ranked runners and to have a cross-country team like that. And what's not mentioned is those teams tend to have very, very high GPAs. Those kids are all usually in leadership, and they're also nationally ranked. And I think that some stat, as a coach over at Granada, I don't get any credit for cross-country, I just watch them run. But I think that their B team, their second team, is as good as most people's first team. So that's an enormous accomplishment by the coaching staff over there and all the folks that support student athletes at Granada High School. So hats off to them. Mr. Van Schack.
Let me just make a correction. I meant to thank Principal Gladden at Livermore High School. I accidentally said my son's principal's name, so.
Oh.
Thank you. Oops, my bad.
Forgiven. Speaking of accomplishments, we just found out today that the Livermore High School football team had the highest GPA in the section, Division II. So, beat Foothill, beat, I mean, so that was really amazing accomplishment that we found out today. Not only did they have a successful season on the field, but I think their average GPA of the football team was like 3.3 something. So that's really impressive. Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. So excited about that. We are in the midst of the time of year when we traditionally give thanks for those things that we've been blessed with, and often that revolves around material objects in our lives. It's also important to recognize the people who do so much to enrich the lives of others and who provide those blessings. To our certificated staff, which includes teachers, nurses, counselors, psychologists, speech therapists, and administrators, thank you for stepping up this year to provide extra support, especially to those who are working hard to catch up as we transition to a post-pandemic world. Your efforts are resulting in some truly remarkable results, and we know the rest of the school year will be just as good. 2023 shows incredible promise. To our child nutrition staff, thank you for taking on the challenge of providing 2 meals a day to our entire student population. Your ability to quickly pivot when problems arise has resulted in hundreds of students being fed who may have otherwise gone hungry. To our site support staff, including instructional aides, paraprofessionals, office staff, campus supervisors, and so many others, thank you for the oftentimes underappreciated work. Perhaps the community in general doesn't see all the amazing things you do for students and families every day, but your team does. We see you, and we wouldn't be where we are without you, our professionals in every sense of the word. To our maintenance and ground staff, thank you for keeping our schools clean, safe, and a point of pride for our community. Each day, our students and staff benefit from your extraordinary efforts. You often work in some of the most challenging conditions, yet your commitment never wanes. To our parents and the community in general, thank you for the trust you place in us each and every day as we do all we can to prepare the children of Livermore for their opportunities to be difference makers in our world. There are occasional disagreements, but we appreciate your engagement and your desire to do what's best for your children. Finally, to our board, thank you to the 5 of you for your service to this community. By giving so much of yourselves, our students and our community in general are better off. You push us to reach for new levels of student achievement and hold us accountable for the promises that we've made. Great boards pave the way for excellence, and we appreciate your guidance and support. Though we live in a time that we all too often focus on the things that we don't have, this is a great opportunity for us to remember that we are indeed very fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. With no further business, we will adjourn at 21:35. And a reminder to folks in the room,